Today that we're going to hear some personal stories. We're going to hear from your perspectives, and we hope for all our agency members that they get some tips on how best to use audio. So that's where we're going to start. But we thought we might just do an icebreaker just to get us all relaxed and into the afternoon. I'm going to start with you down the end. You're going to go last, I think. Good. Yeah. Good. So we might start with Erin. So I know we're here to talk about all things audio and the future of audio, but I have to ask, what's it like working with Hughesy and Ed? And tell us a bit about your journey that's been over many years and how you found it.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having me. It's a real honour to sit in a panel such as this and to be in this room, so thank you so much. Look, it's great fun, for starters, and that's always kind of been the main goal in our show. And when you work with two comedians, two very funny men, having fun isn't a hard thing to do. And it's... Look, it was a big decision to take on that gig. It's a very, very challenging gig, and I know, Ben, that you went through, and we've spoken on multiple occasions about the challenges of entering Sydney breakfast radio, which I think is not only the most competitive market in Australia, but potentially globally in terms of just how hard it is to crack it. You've done slightly better than we have at this stage, Ben, but we're coming for you. I tell you what, we're coming.
I know.
We have 300,000 listeners, cum, weekly. Women between 40 and 60, thank you so much. Look, it's been incredible. I was saying to Ben just earlier, I obviously made a big career-changing decision at the end of last year after hosting sport at Channel 9 for over a decade. And it was a really scary decision. That's essentially all I've known for a very long time. But it's one that I'm really, really proud of making. And I've been part of things before that haven't worked out, and I know how that feels. And it's lovely to be doing something that is going well and that I'm really enjoying, and that's radio, which is something that I genuinely love every single morning. And Sky News as well, doing a show that encompasses themes and issues that I'm really passionate about.
And the Daily Telegraph as well.
Oh, absolutely, that's number one, clearly. I love doing the Daily Telegraph. No, it's been a really big year for me and a big 12 months, but I'm absolutely loving every second of it and very privileged.
Thank you for sharing. I am going to go to you next, Ben, because
No, don't.
I have heard a story.
I'm just used to jumping in. I'm not used to any little gap. It's a bit of a radio and a sound thing, isn't it, where you go,
well, you're
there's a
used
gap,
to talking for many hours, aren't you?
And I'm not used to co-hosts.
Okay.
I'm surprised you've got anything left after this
Welcome
morning.
to being in agency
Work
land.
your way down to me. I think you've got to keep on going.
So I have heard a story that how you got into broadcasting, and it was as a 15-year-old, I don't know if any of you know this, he was 15 and he was doing work experience on the Alan Jones show.
Yeah, that's
Is
true.
correct? So I guess my question to you is that clearly ignited your love of radio. How has it kept you engaged ever since?
Well, I organised my own work experience because we didn't have any when I was at school, at my school, so I did. I went along when I was 15. I discovered the swearing around the sports department at 2UE, and all of a sudden, as a young bloke, it was very exciting. There were funny people around, and I thought, this is where I want to work, and I've been around radio stations ever since. And yeah, I suppose a bit surreal stepping into Alan's shoes 2 years ago. I said no, I think about 6 times. And then eventually I said yes. And I cried my eyes out the day before my first day, sitting at brunch with my family, including my mum and my sister and my brother. And they all just looked at me like I was very strange. But I just thought, what am I doing? For those same reasons that Erin outlined. It just feels like a bit of a madhouse sometimes, breakfast radio. And if you think around Sydney, this is just one city, but if you go from who Erin's with Hughesy and Ed Cavalier, if you have a look at obviously Kyle and Jackie O as well, and Kyle just becoming a dad, Fitzy and Whipper, Jonesy and Amanda, there's a lot of really, really talented people. Mark Geyer on Triple M, really, really competitive, so it scares the living daylights out of you, really. But I just love it. I love when the alarm goes off at 3:10. What time's yours, Erin, by the way?
You know what? I get myself...
What time's yours, Erin, by the way?
Okay, so I say 4, but it's 4:40.
Yes, see?
I know.
God.
I know.
God. So
that
anyway.
in itself is brave, getting up that hour. No doubt you have to go to bed early. This is probably a late night for you guys.
There's advertisers in the room, so I'm here.
Yes.
That's why I'm here.
So
I'm here
you
to
keep
try
telling
and sign up some business.
Okay, we're going to shift over to Rachel now. For those of you who don't know, Rachel is an expert in content, and she's also had experience in front and behind the podcasting mic. So my question for you, just to get us all warmed up, is what is your favourite podcast at the moment that's really inspiring that we all should have on our list?
Will she say one of her own?
Yeah, Ben Fordham's podcast. Don't miss it. Not a day goes by, mate. I don't know that I'm not very good at picking one right now that I love because I listen to a lot, and I think podcasts are different for different reasons. I don't think there's any one podcaster or network or show that's like this is the pinnacle of what it is because of the niche nature of content. I just think there's just so much out there that means that things are different great for different reasons. But my favourite podcast, I would say, of all time, like if somebody says to me, what's the one podcast I need to listen to, I would always point them to S-Town. For me, that was the most perfectly formed 6 episodes of content, purely because it was a brilliant mixture of storytelling and audio craft. But it was also, as a creator, it had a central character that you would die to find that just happened to pop into this person's inbox, and then a story that unfolded in a very unexpected way with a twist that left you sort of reeling, and it sort of left at the end, you know, wishing you could have more, but also knowing that was like a really wonderful 6 episodes that you got to spend time with. So I think that has been my favourite podcast so far.
Okay, we'll talk a bit more about engaging podcasts, but thank you for sharing that. So Lauren, for those of you who don't know, Lauren really understands our world. So she has been in agency land prior to being publisher side, so we say that she's kind of played both sides of the fence. And I would say, my question to you is, if you could go back to your agency self, what have you now learnt seeing the full ecosystem, clients, publisher, agency? What would you say to agency people in the room that you might do different for a client, knowing what you now know?
I think when I look back, it was in the 2000s that I was in agencies, and I actually started in independent agencies as well. And I'd probably say take advantage of all the free lunches because when you go over to publisher side, you get less of that. But if I were to give some advice to myself back then, it's probably to let go of the client a little bit. I think that now the role I'm in at ARN sits kind of across content and works with commercial as well. And what I probably didn't appreciate when I was in agency world is just how much the account managers in the sales team really care about your business and getting the best result for your clients. And then how much the content team are just experts at what they do. Like nobody knows how to connect with their audience better than they do. And so I think kind of loosening the grip a little bit on the client and I guess shortening that gap between the people that are on air and the client by bringing them together gets you the best result. And I see it time and time again, like when we bring clients in with the content creators, you get these amazing ideas, and then when they're on air, it totally over-delivers for the client because the person that cares about that idea being presented in the best light is delivering the idea themselves. So I think, yeah, if I could go back, I think that kind of protectiveness that I had around my clients, I'd certainly loosen my grip because I see the benefit now of doing that.
I think that's really good advice because I don't know about everyone in the room, but I think clients are asking more and more for that access and don't want to be kept at arm's distance. And I think, to your point, if they can get in during the content creation and make the authentic I'm coming to you, because I think it's really fascinating in your space around how you can authentically do that. But let's shift to audiences, because I think for us as agency people, it's what we do every day. We're connecting our clients' audience, trying to find the right audiences and environments for our clients' messages. So Erin, I guess this is what you do every day. You connect with different audiences, whether you're hosting, whether you're presenting. I'm curious as to how your strategies, if you like, or your secret sauce of how you shift and meet the needs of the different audiences you reach.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually when I look at kind of what I'm doing at the moment. And this morning, for example, I'm on radio with Hughesy and Ed talking about, I think, celebrity dog school or something, and joking about, Hughesy's rescue dog and farting in baths and things like that. And after this event, I'm going to host a panel with Peter Beattie and Joe Hockey and talk about the threat of China. So I have very different audiences in the different areas of my life, and similar with the Daily Telegraph column. Thank you, Ben. I'll remember to include them with every reference I make. I think the key thing for us, and particularly Breakfast Radio, which has been this incredible journey thus far over, say, 18 months, understanding who we're speaking to. And in doing that, you need to know who you're trying to appeal to without polarising people and without, I guess, you always want to appeal to as many people as possible, clearly, but when you do that, you risk not connecting with those that you want to target. And for us, we've identified women between 40 and 60, and that's where we seem to be going pretty well at the moment. We've had, our last survey was a little bit of a drop, but we had 6 surveys in a row for Today FM that have gradually gone up, and that for us is a massive win. And we're still very much at a beginning stage. We're nowhere near where Ben is or where Kyle and Jack and all the others are, but it was always going to take a long time. And I think that goes back to one of your earlier questions about my journey in getting here. And for me, joining up and signing up to Today FM, having been part of a program, i.e. the last year of the footy show that didn't work out, I was determined not to do anything that was going to be cut within a year or 2 years. So when I said to them, and similar to Ben, I'd said no a few times prior, but my big thing was this will always take time. So I think we're getting there, it's slowly and surely. And our audience, we identify who they are and we try to cater content that appeals to them. We're authentic. We deliver it through our own experiences. We're relatable. We tell stories about our own lives. And I think that's the thing that I've really noticed. And I've worked in radio since I started out at 104.7 in Canberra and 106.3 Mix in Canberra FM were my first few jobs when I was 21 years old. And the difference now, having been predominantly TV and a little bit radio to now being predominantly radio and a little bit TV, is that people would always come up and say hello and, oh, I love you on the footy show. And I know not everyone did, by the way, so thank you so much. They're online, they generally tell me they hate me, but in person they're huge fans, which is lovely. But the difference I've found from a TV connection to a radio connection is people now will come up and say, what happened when your sister came and stayed last week and you didn't know how to set up, the sofa bed? As opposed to, oh, I love you on the footy show, can I get a photo? They want to meet you and they're excited, but they feel like they're your friend. And that's the beauty of 3.5 hours every morning. People listen and they tune in at around the same time, and we try to specifically cater content so that we get the same group of people and they feel like they're on a journey with us. But you really do start to feel like you're family with your listeners. And we had a listener event a little while ago, a brunch about a month ago, and 3 listeners ended up back at my house at 10 p.m. having drinks in my own home. And that's what we like to do on Today FM. Our listeners are our family. You can get on the piss with me at my 3-bedroom apartment. So, look, it's that connection, identifying who they are and how to connect.
She's charging those people $500 a week rent, and they still live there. You need to know the truth.
Beryl from Penrith hasn't left. It's really awkward. She's still there.
So Erin talks about sharing her own life with her listeners and connecting in that way. I think for you, being talk radio, it's even more intimate because you can have real-time conversations, and no doubt for many people you become like a companion to them in the morning, I imagine. So considering the environment is that intimate for you, how would you recommend to all of us agency people that advertisers can seamlessly fit into a show like yours?
Well, I don't think you can necessarily plan it, even though we all like planning. But Erin talks about some of those, little relationships that pop up. A lot of it's the same in terms of becoming friends with people. You're always going to connect with some people more than others. And the advertisers that I've probably had the most success with are advertisers that I know. And I've either met them through the advertising relationship, or in the case of others, I've brought them to 2GB because I like what they do and I've convinced them to come and advertise with us. So I love seeing what they are able to do. There's a guy who I look after who's a butcher, tendergourmetbutchery.com.au. Adam Stratton, he's in Hornsby, and Adam, and now he's everywhere. But he went to the White House to cook a barbecue at the White House, and that happened through us because I introduced him to someone who ended up saying, well, it was Joe Hockey, in fact, who's on Erin's show tonight, who said, and he was the ambassador at the time, and he said, and I said, he's won all these awards, you should, do some stuff with him. So the next thing, he's at the White House cooking a barbecue for ScoMo and Donald Trump. I've got a guy called Mo Helu who used to be my chiropractor, and he tried to sell me a pillow one day, and I told him I didn't want his fucking pillow. I wanted him to fix my back. And then I noticed 2 other people saying Mo loved the pillow, because I went to him about 4 times. So then I went, right, give me one of these pillows. And it was about $150. It wasn't cheap. They're about 200 now. But anyway, I bought one for 150.
Didn't give you the pillow.
No. The next day, I went back and bought another one because I was like, I love this pillow. I convinced Mo to spend... In fact, Mark Noakes is here tonight, who was running sales at the time at 2GB. And I remember saying to Mo, just buy one ad at like a very special rate, one ad. And at the time it was, this is embarrassing because you pay a lot more on my breakfast show these days. But at the time they said it's $1,000 for a live read with Ben on Drive. Give us $500 for one. And he would only buy one ad. And Mo sold about $1 million worth of pillows off the first one. Wow. And then offered to buy me a sports car, which I explained to him I'd get in trouble with the bosses at 2GB. And Mo's now radio everywhere. He doesn't just do 2GB these days. He's like, and he spends millions of dollars on advertising because he's made millions of dollars selling his pillows. And I suppose I love watching that take off as well. But a lot of the time it's because you genuinely like him. Mo's completely mad. Adam's just a really good bloke. So if products fit with you and if you believe in them, I can tell you about Adam's meat all day and all night, but there's other people to talk here, so...
I'll leave that alone.
It's appealing, isn't it?
Is that a spinal ease pillow?
The spinal ease pillow, of course.
So I've got an anecdote about that because I think Kyle heard you talking about...
He did, yeah.
Yeah, spinal ease pillows. And he said, I want some of those. So he came down to sales and he came up to Colleen in sales. Colleen's got a very strong South African accent. And he said to her, get these guys spinal ease on my show. And so Colleen does what she does. She got in contact with them. And Kyle and Jack worked with the guys at Spinal Ease to come up with a character, Colleen from sales, who comes on air with a very thick South African accent whenever Kyle feels like it. So it is a way that we've come up with this solution for the client to talk about spinal ease, but it's whenever there's kind of a gap or a relevant moment in the show. So there's this
Did Kyle honestly do all that to avoid paying $200 for a pillow?
Why did you not get your
$5 million a year?
He hasn't complained about his back since.
Oh,
so,
amazing.
Yeah. But I love the freedom around that. So I came up with an idea that would just float across the show whenever it would fit in a relevant way. And, I mean, we got asked to measure the effectiveness of that campaign, and what we were able to do is look at search results for spinal ease, and you can see the moment that it hit the hour, so 8:01, Kyle does the live read, you can see the search results spike for spinal ease, the correct spelling as well as the incorrect spelling, and that matches up to the results on the website. So it's, yeah.
Can I just give you one example of the lengths I've gone to impress spinal ease, now that we're both competing over spinal ease? I did a live read a few months ago for spinal ease, and I've brought some proof for this because I wanted to be able to read it to you. But I did a live read for spinal ease. No, I was talking to our correspondent in London, and we were talking about the celebrations around the Queen that were happening at the time. And so then I said, off the back of that, I went into a spinal ease live read, and I just mentioned in the live read, I said, oh, we should send one to the Queen because we'd just been talking about the Queen. So 2 days later, someone sent a message to the text line saying, have you sent the spinal ease pillow to the Queen? And this is the engagement. And of course, no, it was one of 16 random things I said on air that morning in the middle of live reads or something else that are just random things. But then I went, oh, well, they've remembered it. I should do it. So I sent this note. Her Majesty the Queen, Buckingham Palace. Madam, I know you receive a mountain of correspondence, so let me start by offering my apologies for adding to it. I want to take the opportunity to pass on Australia's warmest wishes on the occasion of your Platinum Jubilee. You have a lot of fans down under. We've included a gift to mark this significant milestone. It's an Australian invention that we're very proud of, the Spinal Ease pillow. Please accept this gift and our sincere congratulations. Your extraordinary contribution to public life and humble attitude is something we will always respect. Ben Fordham. Well, this is what I got back this week. True. Dear Mr. Fordham, no, she didn't write that. I send you my grateful thanks for your kind message on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of my Accession to the Throne, Elizabeth R, 2022. So, the Queen's got a Spinalese pillow. Kyle got one for free. I sent one to Her Majesty the Queen. The links we'll go to for our advertisers.
I feel like we're all going to go out and buy one if we haven't got one, and I feel like we're all going to be sending products, is what I'm hearing. Look, we've heard a bit from talent, but Rachel, I'm curious, as you're building content for your listeners, what do you look for in talent to make sure that you're hitting your audience numbers but also giving the revenue that you need from our clients?
I think the main thing is an ability to connect, and that doesn't necessarily translate to podcasting. Like, it doesn't mean that if you get somebody who has done a telly show or radio, they're going to immediately step into a podcast space and really nail that, because it is quite a different environment. You know, I think connection is the key to everything that we do, but in a radio sense, you as a performer are stepping into a space with somebody who is listening, whereas with a podcast, they are stepping into the space with you, because they're listening to you on the headphones. It's a much quieter space, and so I think the ability to connect and fit the right person for the right idea. People look for content in the niche that they're looking for, and if the person feels authentic that's guiding that content, then people will keep on coming back. And if they connect with their audience in the right way, then people will again keep coming back. And we all know that podcast growth is incremental, and it is, you know, sometimes really hard to build audience from scratch. It's a tough medium. You don't just press play on something and then you've got 1 million downloads sitting in your bucket. So I think that's key. I think obviously profile is important. It's not always essential if the idea is right. I think, and also not a lot of followers on Instagram or a high profile doesn't necessarily translate across to a really strong audience. Although TikTok, I find, is a platform where listenership does come across a lot more than, say, Instagram or Twitter or something like that. So I think, you know, profile is great, not essential. Ultimately, it's got to be the right person for that idea that can connect with an audience in the right way, because ultimately that's why, if that person has sought out that content, they'll keep coming back.
So you find the right talent, you find the right environment for them, something that they can speak to with authority. How then for us, with clients, do we authentically fit into a podcast? Because Lauren and I were at an event this morning, we were talking about how sometimes quite jarring it can be if it's not in the right environment. In fact, it probably does more damage than good. So curious as to how you would recommend that.
My main thing is always that this podcasting, unlike any other medium, the advertising impacts it. So if you heard an ad on Ben's show, unless it was read out of your mouth, you're not necessarily going to say, oh, Ben personally endorsed that message on his show. Or if you watch something on telly and you see an ad go to air, you're never going to say on the project, oh, I can't believe Waleed let that ad for Toyota go to air. But on a podcast, if you have something that is inserted through your podcast, you know, and I'm talking about the stuff that's not necessarily read in your host's voice, it does impact the show, because there is a sense that there is ownership over this environment by the host and that they have allowed this to come into their show. So you do need to be much more protective of it. I think always the best way to integrate a brand is by putting it in the voice of the person, because you want it to feel like a seamless part of the content. You want somebody to be halfway through the ad and to feel like, oh, I'm listening to an ad and I didn't even realise. And part of that is about being more creative and engaging than you might be comfortable with as a brand. Sometimes, you know, you really have to fit the tone of the host and the tone of the show. And sometimes that might mean you need to be a bit more playful than you might be comfortable with, because you want an audience to listen and think, oh, this feels totally natural to what I'm used to listening to. Some of my favourite ads is a show, Pod Save America, I used to listen to, and they would just tear shreds off their advertisers for writing shite scripts, and, you know, and you felt like the advertiser was in on the joke. You don't have to go that far as an advertiser, but it was perfectly in the tone of the show. And I would never miss an ad on that show, because I was like, this feels like what I'm used to listening to. And I love that they're playing with that. The Smartless guys like Jason Bateman and those guys do the same thing with their ads. Really fun and engaging content. So I think you have to keep within the tone of the show.
I think there's a really neat saying that you can use as a content strategist or give to your clients to think about when they're creating content that goes within podcasts. And that's to be like, imagine if you could be the content people want to listen to, not just sit between the content that people want to listen to. And so that's really about getting them to focus on what the audience wants to hear. And, you know, I think the content creators themselves obviously know that inside out, but that's probably where, as agencies, you can be giving advice to your clients about how to create bespoke content to sit within, the relevant environment.
I think Hamish and Andy do it well, don't they? Like, you listen to their podcast and they have this 20-second setup at the top, and it always starts in the same format of saying, hey, Hame, Uber's back on board as the sponsor. And they have a 20-second, it's always different, always new, and then it's out of the way and it's done. But it's that Hamish and Andy brand, to go to what you were saying, which is it's exactly the same Hamish and Andy that you're about to get for the next 45 minutes.
The issue with that is brands are often comfortable doing it with a talent like Hamish and Andy because they're like, it's Hamish and Andy. We'll do whatever they want us to do. But you have to do the same thing with the show that's getting the smaller amount of downloads that isn't Hamish and Andy, because it still needs to fit in that way. Exactly.
And I think I know I'm getting the wrap up. So I think in summary, I think what I'm hearing from all of you is just to make sure that the tone's right, that the sponsors are someone that you can authentically talk about, and that I think that, we're really cognizant of the audience that needs to be bespoke for each channel, each podcast, each presenter, each host. So look, unfortunately, I would talk to you guys all night, but there is a band coming and Sky News is waiting. So can we please give a big round of applause to our panellists?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.